much. It's very interesting because we flipped the presentation. We started about good things and we are ending up on actually we can run this stuff. And so it's Servus from Vienna, so the place where the biggest newspaper wrote that all the efforts is just to run the sovereign cloud is a PR action. So that's why I will have a talk with Der Standard. But so I'm very thankful to Labyrinth Labs for hosting me because they have supported my user group in Vienna so many times. And there are lots of good people because when it was completely hopeless, Labyrinth Labs came, supported us, and I'm very thankful to all of you. And it's a big honor for me to finally come to Bratislava and be part of the event. So I'm AWS community builder. I'm working as a senior cloud operations engineer in Sage, and there are a lot of activity related for me in community in the German region. But let's go quick to the reInvent because it's already a long time. Please take attention that on the slides there is an agenda. So most of the announcements are related to United States regions, but most of the announcements are already available in Frankfurt. And please take a note from the QR code in the corner so that you could read more in detail about the announcement. So, but before we fly to Vegas, technically, I would like to mention one thing in addition to the sovereign cloud, because last week I gave the reInvent recap in Abu Dhabi. I have had the chance to speak to Emirati colleagues who work with AWS, and they have a very interesting situation about their sovereign model. So the company, the Etisalat, who is the biggest provider of internet in the United Arab Emirates, they made also cooperation with AWS where their data centers would be dedicated not to one, not to five, but thousands of AWS outposts for formation of sovereign cloud and for all the financial sensitive data up to top secret range data. And it will be maintained on their backbone, their data centers with the Emirati people. And what is important, it's supported by the government. And they will have also 30,000 people trained to work with AI and AWS. So probably it's just an example how also more local cooperations might look like, especially in more, as was mentioned, in extensions to the local zones and so on. So yeah, and actually the toolkit, if you will be flying to reInvent, I would like to advise you to use AWS News because you can catch a lot of good things from the pre-reInvent time because lots of stuff is happening. We had over 400 announcements and actual 100 on the reInvent itself. And if you will go here, I highly recommend to use the reserved seating. So please use reInvent Planner. Both tools are made by our community members, and you will be able to sort the sessions, pick the sessions, and make up a productive schedule for the reInvent. So let's jump to the reInvent, because first of all, let's speak about the money. So AWS deprecated the Partners Central, so there is no more Salesforce infrastructure, so if you're managing your partner status, your stuff, it's now more transparently integrated with your AWS console. And so you don't have to jump between different systems, manage more accounts, more accesses. It's now a part of the console, and you should expect first things to be migrated in the March, and the old Partner Central will be deprecated by the end of the year. So also what is important for you, for maybe you, if you host your customers in your organizations, that now you can dedicate the bills, remove the responsibility for your accounting, for actually taking care of the customers' bills, all the communication. Now AWS can do it for you. So, and you can do the pricing adjustments, you can manage the billing from it, and actually have your team paid from this. So, and now about more interesting thing. A lot of happening to run AI, to run our databases, to run everything. But maybe as a lot of people aware of we have a big constraint on the not only physical resources, but that data centers, they require energy, that they require a lot of stuff. And Graviton, it's a big leap architecturally because Amazon is using a new packaging from TSMC. Unfortunately, I do remember the name of Intel's counterpart, which is Favion. But the idea is that you can build a more closer stacked core configuration with a more efficient lithography. It means lithography is cheaper, more productive chips, and you get better performance, less intercore latency into highly parallel operations that require good intercore latency. And it's very beneficial for the databases, for the multi-parallel processing, and there is a big jump for over 30% in comparison with the past generation. So if you already maintained your stuff, because I'm very happy with the Graviton on AWS services managed by them, and if you are starting from the greenfield, it's a good opportunity to give it a try. What is also interesting, AWS brought a next generation of the Ultra servers. What is special about it? First of all, architecturally, you can have a clustering for your tasks, because those servers, they are combining Trainium chips that are dedicated for running the interferentia, for training of the models in conjunction with the new NVIDIA GB300 chips. But using the Ultra server, you are not working on the single deck, you are working on a big cluster of the things, and AWS gives you opportunity to dedicate, to cluster your training, interferential, AI processing tasks for a many big set. An example of Ultra server is completely dedicated data center that was built for Anthropic and which is used to train the Claude, which probably, how many of you are using Claude Code? Yeah, so basically, currently, it's one of it is used exclusively by Anthropic. And it's very interesting thing because Amazon also announced together with it Trainium 4. So also that would like dedicate the architectural ideas that came in the current Graviton new generation. And they already promising us a huge floating point performance leap and also energetical gains. So we can expect that because of Amazon in-house chips, we will have a good capacity for AI services in the more core regions. And what is also important, we got a new kind of instances, and I would like to highlight two completely different use cases. You can see that we have X8AEDZ instance. So just to summarize it, this is the instance with the highest performance on the core in the public clouds because of latest generation of AMD EPYC chips. And also it comes together with the next generation of Nitro cards that was mentioned you have seen them before, because it takes care of hardware acceleration of certain virtualization functions to offload the CPU. And this instance is supposed to be also with the highest network capacity, so probably it would be a good choice for the managed firewall or highly demand for the networking environment in so paralleled operations. And together with the new AMD instances, we got a new Intel instances that might hold up to 256 cores on a single chip and might be a good choice for the parallel processing as well. So, and yeah, as we might have heard a lot of times, AWS is the best place to run NVIDIA GPUs. And they brought GB300 into the clusters together with the new Trainium instances. What is interesting architecturally, now this is an exclusively water-cooled chip, and it takes over 2,750 watts in a single rack configuration. So you can imagine amount of power that AWS must push through itself to give us opportunity to run those chips. What is interesting about closer to us stuff, because when we got the silicon we have to run, and all of us probably love containers, now you have an easy opportunity to debug and see the graphs and network operation inside of your EKS clusters. So now you have a visibility on your network structure, you can see the bandwidths between the nodes, between the pods, and you can see potentially identify breakages, wrong routing, misconfigurations, and things that require like probably attention, or just make sure that your cluster operates in a more optimal way, that you don't hurt yourself by some, I don't know, mistake in the deployment and communication between the pods. What is also very interesting that AWS is expanding the matter of managed EKS. So now we got EKS capabilities. This is a feature that lets you, without of any additional efforts, having the running Argo CD inside of the cluster, you will get AWS Resource Manager and a few additional features, so the list will be expanded with the time. But what is interesting for us, that those capabilities, they run on the managed control plane by AWS outside of our cluster node capacity. So they will provide it for us, and you're just ending up with a ready-to-go Argo CD and other plugins for resource management, but you just don't have to have any operational penalty for it. And if you just would like to maintain it, and you can proceed with running this thing. So, of course, we didn't forget about ECS, because ECS is a good, stable, predictable counterpart of EKS. And some effective managers, they might say that we don't need DevOps engineers anymore. Funny people, because I think we now have ECS Express opportunity, because sometimes we need to quickly test something or just run some container, or for instance, you would like to see how AWS implements some certain feature, or if you're only starting with a cloud, you can take their reference and see how actually they are deploying and building the things. So this is the mode that makes easy things even more easier, and if you just need to run the container, now you can just run it without of any preparations, because it will build for you all the networking, load balancing, and cluster management, so you will just have a working endpoint you can start and use. So what is interesting also, we are getting expansion of fully managed MCP server for both EKS and ECS, and it directly interacts with your cluster. You have an opportunity to get it connected to the pods. You can get the statuses of the pods. You can get tracing, network logs, application logs all together, and it's a managed service from AWS that you can just take and start using in your, I don't know, cloud operations thing. So one of the examples that AWS bring together with this deck is that they offer us to use this MCP for making a chatbot, for instance, that you can come and say, how is my super successful vibe-coded startup doing? And it says, everything is nice, just one pod is running. Yeah, and so there are a lot of interesting things. AWS can be funny sometimes, because I have used image builder a lot of times, and we can have very advanced things like those servers, AI, but I took this slide because now we can automatically raise the version of your AMI images. And if you have ever built it's something, it might be a good case if you need to take the AMI to harden it, to install your monitoring agents, dependencies, and this is a good foundation if you would like to spin up your process, and you can also build good automations with the scanning based together on the event bridge and the stuff. And this thing, it just takes one small operational overhead from you, because most of the announcement there, they would like to take over more operational burden that you have had before. So, also, what is interesting, so how many of you ran EC2 Fleet or stuff on the spot instances? So now you have more capabilities for the auto-scaling, and this is interesting because I have had a production case when we were processing the actual event bridge calls, that the instance might be taken out from the service, and now we have more opportunities that we could have multi-staged lifecycle control in scaling for the EC2 fleets and the stuff, and we can more or less control the state of application, state of the availability, and it gives more predictable environment, and you can be not surprised, for instance, if you take out some kind of working node in the middle of some process execution. So it's good that we can calculate, but it's important to store the data. There were a lot of announcements that related to DynamoDB, to Aurora, to DSQL. There are so many things, but what is my favorite, and I took it first, that finally, the long-awaited, we got the database savings plans. Those savings plans, they work in the same way like the normal compute savings plans for the EC2s, and so you don't have to be stuck for reservations anymore, because those savings plans, they are covering most of services, including Elasticache, Aurora, RDS, and so on. So there are a huge list of the things, and now you can be more flexible in your deployments, but still have the benefits. You are not locking you out in the commitment. So if you would like to take the discount, this is a good opportunity. And also, what is interesting for the people who are using the OpenSearch, now AWS is providing the managed GPU acceleration for the indexes for you. It means that you don't have to control the capacity providers anymore. You don't have to care about provisioning. And AWS is claiming that you might have a 9 times better cost performance rather than from the classical customized GPU instances inside of OpenSearch clusters. And It works in the way that, for instance, for certain operations, AWS automatically puts your cluster on the GPU accelerated instances, and when they are not necessary anymore, you are just taking it down to the normal capacity. So it saves you money, saves your time, and you can deliver the features faster. Another interesting thing that OpenSearch, we get the managed agentic search. I think it's a very good thing because for us, for the engineers, it removes the need to build a kind of complex logical workflows for the data retrieval. Also, it provides a better integration for the third-party systems. And for instance, I have a colleague, very nice people, but they are not technical anymore. And they are afraid of the snowflake. And they are coming to the snowflake, they have a heart attack, and this is a kind of example that you could assist in this way, because through this interface, you can easily let them talk with your OpenSearch database in the way like they would just communicate to you to retrieve some data. What is also interesting, we got blue-green deployments in Aurora Global. So yeah, not just a normal blue-green with the after failover, after load balancing. And for instance, when you're finishing the stage of testing the changes in the green deployment that get synchronized with the rest of the cluster, and you have a different points of availability, and you have more opportunity to flexibly test the environments. And if many of you, do we have people who already run the SQL in production? Okay, AWS must make a few more presentations. But now you have a more integrated providers, so JDBC drivers that use a native AWS certification, and that you don't have to take management of the connections and the stuff, and it's more or less optimized for the SQL natively, giving you additional performance and less operational overhead in addition. So it's good that we have something running, but networking also changed a lot of new things in terms of the networking. CloudFront got improvements, and there are changes for the routing, for the load balancing, so many interesting things. Let's quickly have a look. So first of all, who or you like the prices for the NAT gateway? So we have a unicorn investor in the back. So unfortunately, I think this is good from operational state, because now you can have AWS NAT gateways just deployed in your whole region in one of the clicks. Because like if you use the normal IPv6 ingress, then you can just have the connectivity. For IPv4, you should use the NAT gateways or FACNAT or whatever you prefer, or some tricky routing, and yeah. But now, so you can deploy regional NAT gateway, and this is a long-awaited feature. The drawback is that, if you have paid for 3 availability zones, you still have to pay for 3 availability zones. So it does not bring the discounts, but it removes a lot of management also from the infrastructure part, that you have to take care for the bigger routing tables, also additional instances and high availability scenarios. This is already will be done for you. So what is interesting with the CloudFront, and especially for the hobbyists, for the people who are just learning AWS, now you have a very predictable plans in CloudFront, because you cannot understand the pricing. There are a lot of horror stories when, for instance, people got 60, 100,000 for CloudFront because someone DDoSed them. So now you can have flat rate of 0 to 100, 5,000 in the special business plans. You get a different limits by the traffic, by availability. You get a different layers of WAF and protection, but now you can ensure that you will not have a billing surprises from the CloudWatch. So this is one of the significant things, and I think $0 plan is a good opportunity to run your application or your personal website and still get WAF protection, DDoS protection, and I think it's a good overcome from them. One very significant thing, so how many of you are running multi-cloud environments? Okay, so AWS has initiated an open standard which follows the Open API directive, and it's called AWS Interconnect. Interconnect is made to couple transparently for you without of management overhead different cloud providers and also your on-premises environment. Currently, Interconnect is available for 5 AWS regions and 5 GCP regions. How does it mean technically? So the process is you're creating a token in your AWS account, you're creating the token for handshake in your GCP account, you initiate the session. So if you work with the Tailscale or WireGuard, it might be a comparable process for you. Then AWS and GCP run from starting from 4 so trunks of connection between your environment. They are managing the BGP for you. They are managing everything, so you don't have to do any VLANs, VPN routing. You don't have to look for the different partners, especially if you are running in the different regions. So all you have to do is initiate the session. AWS is using a new IEEE standard for the encryption in the standard, and AWS is promising that GCP was only the beginning, and we have to expect better connectivity without of all the hassle with the networking and gateways and VPNs in the forecast, because VPNs can be scaled that much as we wish. Also, you need high availability, it's all operational overhead, and then you also get a lot of stuff for like if you do another ways. But in this way, you just make the handshake, everything is managed, downtimes, maintenance windows, they just keep up the connectivity, and you get your AWS network extended to the cloud. And the same opportunity for your on-premises environment, you can deploy the connector, do the installation setups, and do the same managed connection between your on-premises environment and AWS. So talking about the outposts, so many of you have seen outposts in general, so does anyone run it? Okay, so now we have a new service from AWS, which is called AI Factories, that you can have AWS branded hardware inside of your data center. I think it's a good opportunity, also alternative for NVIDIA chips. And for instance, I don't like NVIDIA anymore. And if I would have a question to buy this one or this one, so then that's a good opportunity to also bring the functions of AWS in AI and also maintain the flexibility and AI offerings they have. So what is also interesting regarding the cloud front, that now you can bring your IPs, and this in general, this is a good opportunity for your compliance. If you have a dependencies on external DDoS protection, if you have dependency on your external providers, and you, for instance, you're having 500 distributions, and you don't have to manage it anymore in the way that you get some random IPs and endpoints for distributions, you can now fix your IPs, you can give them to your partners, and you get the benefits of CloudFront without the hassle and guessing about the connectivity. And yeah, so people worried about the encryption, and especially since we have encryptions for the traffic, encryptions provided by the Dmytro hosts, now you have a centralized VPC control that will make you force the specific encryption policies, that you will have specific policies for the that you don't allow yourself to publish some resource unencrypted. And also AWS made a lot of changes announced separately on reInvent in terms of re-encryption, because AWS goes towards the quantum post-quantum encryption for certificates, for S3 buckets, for KMS, to ensure that you have the strong encryption in the, I don't know, some rapid extension of AI or computing power in upcoming future. So yeah, another interesting thing is Target Optimizer for ALB. So ALB agent works here like a gateway in front of your application, and it dynamically keeps the connection with the application load balancer. So how it means, you have a fleet of targets, fleet of instances, and for instance, I don't know, we get 5 requests here, 3 requests here, 1. So, and there is always a communication and rebalancing the targets, that equal targets would give the loaded and like symmetrical traffic, that you don't have to, for instance, you have some, I don't know, collapsed routing and you have one node overloaded and something else. And also, NLB got features compared to ALB. What is interesting now, you can do the weighted traffic on NLB, and as normal, you can do the distribution. So this is something similar on Route 53, but on the level of the AWS NLB. So it's good to have the things running. Let's mention the most fundamental thing. It was a big job from all AWS community team. I know personally a lot of European AWS heroes, for instance, Linda Mohammed, Monica Colangelo, so Marcos Ostertag. It was a huge communication between them. I also put a word to AWS because thankfully they heard the community, customers, because not everyone need GitLab or GitHub. And for me, I was sad about the cold commit because how it was simultaneously simple and well integrated with AWS. And thankfully, they brought it back, and you can continue using the whole cold build, cold deploy pipeline also together inside of your AWS accounts without dependencies on third-party systems. So now very interesting thing, because AWS introduced the DevOps agent. Could you please tell me how many of you have PagerDuty and on-call shifts? So I have 3 happy colleagues over here. So AWS built a DevOps agent, and it's very interesting because it's action, like it's intended to act like an on-call engineer. So it does visibility of your, first of all, resources. It gets understanding of what you have in your network, in your AWS setup. You can connect it to MCP servers. You can connect it to different like Datadog, Dynatrace, GitHub, whatever actions. So you can take data from different sources. You get data from AWS automatically collected. You can connect it to CI/CD and configure it to replicate the actions and react on the situations, like situations, whatever happens. So basically it gives visibility on with what it works, and it can take decisions to bring back your service. And I think if you have some repeatable patterns that you can dedicate it to DevOps agent, and using the data, it will take decisions to resolve the incident and bring the productivity of your service back during the night. So it gives us maybe a good opportunity to be more calm. What is important that it's a like post-effect thing, so it's not fixing anything before, it's just a reaction thing. And yeah, because this is something new and maybe a good alternative and expansion of your incident response stack. Another interesting thing that AI also counts for FinOps, and I don't know how many of you feeling confident in Cost Explorer. Yeah, so probably we need 3 MBAs to handle it sometimes. So usually I was just exporting CSVs and giving it to Claude for some calculations, but thankfully it's not anymore, because now we have a full FinOps cycle, because you can calculate expenses for your infrastructure, like on the stage when you're building it with the agents, or for instance, if you use Kira Autonomous Agent or CLI, together with this agent, it will do the approximations, it will monitor your tires, and like estimate the costs, like do different cost scenarios, and you can just come to this guy and say, how much I would pay for my vibe-coded startup, and it will tell you $3, and then you're happy. So yeah, and it just brings the burden, playing with the graphs, so sorting the things, and you will have a staged approach to the costs, so that you don't have much surprises anymore. What is amazing thing about the CloudWatch, you also get the incident response for the alarms, which is AI accelerated. You get AI support for alarm data points and log retrieval. But the most important, now you have unified management in CloudWatch. So it means that you don't have any more excuse if you haven't equalized the log format across your setup, because it can automatically make for you log setup for hotel format or open security format, and do specific faceting of the data, cutting, and the whole ETL process, that whatever you get gets unified, and you know how to process and work with your data. So it removes a huge overhead, and you can get more better from organizational part and the stuff. So yeah, of course, one more MCP server, unfortunately, and this is specifically for AWS, that you can integrate in your project, chatbots, whatever, and AWS claims that information generated out of this MCP server can be used as validated source of information in relation to AWS. So your bot can come here, get information on AWS, and you can say that, get better confidence that it refers actually accurate and right documentation. So yeah, and Kira is generally available. So how many of you were the part of preview? So Kira is very interesting, because back in the days in Budapest in October, so on the Community Day Central Europe, Massimo Fiera, so AWS lead from Milan, he's a very interesting person. I love his presentations. He made a presentation that very excited me. He put a timeline of the stuff before ChatGPT and after ChatGPT. And Kira was one of the stages for software, or not specification-defined development. And it means that you describe logics, patterns, how to develop everything. And Kira keeps up the development this way without placing the things. For instance, you have shuttered and fragmented development through the different LLMs. And now we have had Kira IDE, we have had Kira CLI, and now we also have the autonomous agent that will use your specification, and it can be part of CI/CD pipelines or can be kind of React for the response stack. That, for instance, you have a zero-day vulnerability. Kira comes, patches the library, pushes it, deploys, and you have a good version in your environment. Yeah, and also the same for the billing for the smaller organizations, if you are not a partner, that you are having less overhead. And let's talk about the important thing, because it's nice to have good data, good project, everything. You are running the things. And AWS got the security agent. And for instance, you could ask me, what's the difference from the DevOps agent? Like, it should also respond on something. This is a very interesting thing, because to AI security agent, you give it access to your Git repos, to binaries, to the stuff. It takes security markers from everywhere, from your code, so it helps you to reduce development debt, technical debt, and keep you more updated, make better patching cycles. So it controls deployments, it controls process of deployment, so it already introduces you DevSecOps for your stage, and then it continuously penetrates from outside. It does automatic pen tests. It controls like fingerprints of network, of user interaction, of WAF statistic. It grabs all possible data from the different stages to ensure that you are staying on more safe side. And I think this is a good addition to the security hub, because it's good to have fortified, good environment, good landing zone. And for instance, I think Labyrinth Labs can definitely help you building one if you need it, but also like to monitor your things. And for instance, together with the AI agents in conjunction, you can get more secure. And fundamental thing, I think it should have been even before. How many of you are updating the AWS keys in the environment variables? So you don't have to do it anymore, because if you come to your AWS SSO, you log into AWS, now you can just open PowerShell, Bash, whatever you have, iTerm, tell the AWS login, and the AWS session from your browser will be taken, so you don't need to hassle with IAM users anymore, IAM keys, to transfer the keys from Identity Center, whatever you like. So you just put AWS login, your active session is in, and you continue working. And this is beneficial because sometimes, personally, I was also sometimes lazy to set up the keys, to put them somewhere, right? And I use the Cloud Shell. But Cloud Shell, for instance, it might need some access to VPC, to other resources and stuff. And this is a good alternative, because you can jumpstart your work directly from your terminal that you are running. And also, it's security-wise, you don't have to worry about of some exposed keys, misconfigurations, broken keys, and so on. Security Hub now becomes more interesting, because we will touch two-layer thing, new real-time risk analytics. So it takes information from the guard duty, from the inspector, from the VPC flow logs, also from the benchmarks, from the guard duty, and you will get a better overview based on the higher level of the, like, let's say, OSINT of your environment. And it will allow you to react on the issues like faster. But this is more like environment-wide. And speaking about the lower level of it, you can also get a more coverage with extended threat protection, because then it will control your containers, your libraries, your processes. It will also control additional things for the networking, for the requests that it processes. And you get covered with advanced protection for both environment level and your lower level, and you get a good analytics. And for instance, you don't dependent on some WAF rules, whatever, or some, I don't know, signatures like for a security solution over here, but because it will do it for you, it will apply security rules, and you can set up, for instance, how and what you would like to control, in which patterns, and which information to use, and it will get you covered. And yeah, so we still have the storage, because it's nice still to protect it, because we have had already an overview on S3 vectors, which is a very interesting thing in general. And now you also can do conditional write copy in a S3. It means that you can offload your application logic that works with the S3 buckets on the architectural level of S3, and it will ensure that you are doing the correct operations over your files in S3 buckets in the different scenarios. Also, storage lenses got enhanced because of the improvements for S3 vectors and S3 tables. Now it can scan S3 tables, also control the tiering, and now it doesn't just tell you that, for instance, you have these files. Yeah, it will tell you that, okay, you have this, we propose you to use this tiering, so it gets more dynamic and it gives you more opportunity, more visibility, especially for the big buckets, how and what you are storing. And also a new interesting access by attributes. So for instance, usually we get S3 buckets policies and stuff. Now you can say that, for instance, if you access from certain resources, from a certain tag or certain cost center, if you have a good policy in your AWS organization. Or for instance, if your application sends some special header, now you can grant the opportunity. And I think this is like a good addition to S3 bucket control through the IAM, SCP, and this can be more dynamic and also be in some situation more flawless and more precise rather than IAM control over here. Yeah, and what is from the storage part? So I don't know if many of you manage VM, Commvault, the N2W, and so now you can backup clusters with the AWS backup, the same straightforward way. As for instance, it works for EC2 instances, so you can backup only persistent volume storages, or you can backup the whole cluster with a control plane settings, scripts, so you don't have to use any expensive solutions or do some extensive scripting. It just takes the snapshots, and you can select, for instance, what to recover. The only limitation for now is that you cannot have two same clusters at the same region because of the namespace interception, so it does not replace it for you. But for this one, so you can use it for cluster migration and something, and just make a backup and kick off it from the point from the backup. And also air-gapped. I don't know actually why you would like not to have air-gapped backup, because you need to also, it's a part of policies like, I don't know, for certifications, for audits, for HIPAA it's important, for also some financial might require it. But the idea is that before you had to pay because you had an additional step. So you might do the backup not to air-gapped storage, and then the copy it to air-gapped, and AWS charges you for everything. Why is that important? Because there are some people who do the ransomware, and for instance, they are coming to your AWS account, they encrypt everything, they destroy backups, they destroy evidence, they destroy everything, and then they asking you for the ransom. It will not happen in this one because air-gapped vault is protected from any kind of overrides. It's a sealed vault, so if you move the backup here, it will be persistent, and even administrator with the highest roots or even AWS support, no one will be able to destroy backups from air-gapped vault. Yeah, and unfortunately, so there are more things to cover, but I think it's a lot of information. What I would like to tell you, so I don't know your profile. I think we have different people, infrastructure, ops, developers. Please take your time to go to AWS Build Center, because you can have the structured overview of all the announcements. You can have a structured overview from AWS heroes, community builders, with the reflections from the site. Important now, you can also do the AWS workshops over here. And you have over 200 opportunities, for instance, to try new services, and you will go through the guided stuff in here. So if today's recap was not enough, you can still catch up, and I will be happy if you go to LinkedIn, add me, and we have some good discussion for some certain services, because it's always great to speak to interesting people. And of course, AWS resources that you can also follow and have the meaning from AWS people about the announcements. And in general, there are a lot of things that you can follow on AWS events, watch the sessions, because they also explain the services. And I hope that all the work of me and colleagues was very useful for you and brought you some impression from AWS development and maybe some interest to visit re:Invent this year. So thank you very much. Do we have any questions, or should we just drink the rest of the beers? Yeah.
deploy application. What would be like the motivation to use that instead of Fargate? Because Fargate also gives you like a very easy way to deploy application.
So I think it's a replacement if, for instance, if you don't have a library of your good Terraform or CloudFormation templates and you need to deploy something fast, and for instance, you don't want to go to LLM and asking for the template, or for instance, I think, as I mentioned, if you don't know what to do, and for instance, you can deploy the cluster, but still you have to take care of connectivity for the stuff. So you see, it's a very two different things. Fargate removes the management of the cluster for you. And this specific function, it removes the building around the cluster. So instead of thinking what kind of balancing, networking, you just take the template. And I think they also might include some, I don't know, generic services that usually used by people in containers, and it just gets it in the place. And ECS is not that complicated, but still, you see that there is still a demand. For instance, there is an AWS Light Sale that gives you VPS kind of hosting and also WordPress. And I think for them, it's also for ECS, you can bring your container, just put it and see how it works from outside. So I think also, have you seen the meme where someone bytecoded something and say, check out my application, and then it says localhost 8080. So I think this is for this kind of people, not for, or if you just would like to save the time.
It's just pre-configured target.
Yeah, basically. So
it's publicly known that what is MCP server are using? Is it the open source one?
which MCP server for what?
For EKS.
Yeah.
So is you using the open source MCP server?
It's the one managed one. So you are attaching it to your cluster, then it gives you the visibility on resources, and you get the public endpoint through which you can interact with the data. So, and AWS is just sets this up, and it's a kind of, probably it uses the same backend like the plain additions.
I see, but the implementation of MCP server
Yeah.
is the open source?
No idea, honestly. Yeah, I think it would be better to check the news article. I just don't want to lie to you. Okay, I think if you don't have question, I think we still have some time. Sorry, I forgot the Apple Watches at home because of their work time. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention. So I think we can still have a chat over here, and hopefully we see us again in Bratislava or in Vienna.